Even though I woke up like 15 minutes ago, I still need a deep breath because this is the craziest week of my life. I'm getting married in 3 days, and I didn't know what the final day of my wedding was going to be until like a week ago, because I've been doing a conversion process and had to know that that was going to be finalized before I could get married. Which is, this is totally fine, having to throw everything together last minute and just do it, because honestly, with COVID, we weren't gonna have the wedding we really wanted to have anyway. And this one's gonna be beautiful. It's just that a lot of important people can't be there. They're gonna be there on Zoom, because that's what we live in those times now. Bought this veil on Amazon. Happiness is not a matter of time, but a thing of the world. Give the company you want. Thank you so much. I feel like I just had a whole breakthrough in my mental health. So anyway, my friend Jeffrey is coming over to do a hair and makeup trial later today. And he is the makeup and hair stylist who did my red carpet look for the I Spit on Your Grave premiere, which was like 10 years ago. Should I just wear this like for the video? Be kind of fun, right? How do I look? It's so weird. I thought that I would share with you guys a little story about how I met my fiance. It's a crazy one, because most people, if I wrote it in a script, they'd be like, that didn't happen. That's too perfect. But if you think that after hearing the story, just remember that it took 7 years past the magicalness that you're going to hear right now to actually get our act together and get married. So, things can seem really perfect, but there's always different dynamics at play. Remember that. Okay, so here goes. Here's the story. I was with someone else. I was traveling and we went to London, and we stayed in the apartment that his father owned. We were there by ourselves, but we went on a day trip one day out to the countryside, and the odd thing was that he kind of did his own thing. He was having a meeting with somebody, and then I was really tired, and there's this gorgeous tree with like a blanket underneath, and I ended up taking a nap. And then we're coming home on the train back to London that night, and I just was saying things to him like, oh, those people really talk like the people in Educating Rita, that play that I'm doing in acting class. And he's like, you need too much attention, you're so annoying, like you can't come to dinner. And I was like, but I'm hungry. And he's like, well, I don't want to deal with you. And I was like, I won't talk to you, I just want to eat. And he's like, no. So I was like, well, okay, I'll go get my own dinner then. And I know you only have one key to the flat, so I'll be back here at exactly 10:30, whatever. Let me in. And I came back at that time, and of course, he didn't let me in. And I was calling, I used the Wi-Fi of, there's a restaurant like below where the apartment was, didn't let me in. Ringing the doorbell, no. Texting, calling, no. Like email, no. And it's getting later and later. I'm like, this is bad. I'm like in another country, and it's like getting close to the middle of the night, and I can't get in anywhere, and I don't really even have money or my passport. And so I started crying. I was on the street corner, like people started coming out of the restaurant that I was using the Wi-Fi, so I knew that was gonna cut off in a second. I was in touch with a good friend who happened to have just gone out to the countryside. So she was like, I'll come back, I'll drive back and get you. I was like, no, just wait. Hold on, maybe, but let's not pull the trigger yet, because that's a big deal. And so, all of a sudden I kind of burst into tears. I'm sitting there, and these 3 people come out of the restaurant, and they, like, oh my gosh, are you okay? What's going on? Can we help you? And, I was like, well, boyfriend locked me out, and then he's like, oh, your boyfriend's my neighbor. I'm like, what? He's like, "No, well, I live like five houses down or something." I was like, oh darn. He said, but why don't you come with us? We're gonna, go to this little bar down the street and like we'll make a hotspot on the phone, whatever. And I was like, okay, because it was a really nice part of town. They're very respectable looking, 2 guys and a girl. So okay, I'll go and whatever. They made the hotspot. Every time I was calling my boyfriend, he didn't pick up. But then we get to this bar, we're standing outside, like waiting to talk to the doorman to get in. And one of the guys says, why don't you try him on my phone? So I tried him on the other phone and he picked up. Oh, wow, interesting. And he said he'd been waiting to hear from me and blah, blah, blah. This is just crazy. So dumb. Like, who did he think was calling him from London? Like, probably his last girlfriend. I'm like, oh my God. This guy was terrible, by the way, but like, I put up with a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have for a long time. So maybe it's my fault too. I don't know. Anyway, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have a drink with these people because they're so nice. And, I'll come back at exactly midnight and you can let me in. And I said I was at this place called Lulu's, and that's what really like made him go, oh, Lulu's, whoa. And I had no idea, but I walked in, it was the most gorgeous members club ever. Like everybody in there was dressed like an international model. And it was super beautiful, like the decor and, just packed and everyone was having fun. And they lead us to this like private table right on the dance floor. Like, do you want vodka or champagne? I'm like, champagne. I was still kind of crying, like champagne. So I'm having my little drink. A couple of the people who I came with, they're dancing. There was one guy kind of quiet and he's like, so I'm curious, what did you do to get locked out? I'm like, well, nothing. And I tell him the story. He's like, yeah, it really seems like, yeah, that's terrible that he did that. I mean, honestly, even if you were a bad person, I don't know, like, that's not fair. No, that shouldn't happen to anyone. And, maybe you should think about it and, just do the rest of your trip. I know that you don't really have the money to fly yourself home and all that stuff. And he's like, but, think about it when you get home because this doesn't feel right. And I was like, you're right. You're absolutely right. This has got to be the last straw. There had been so many things that had happened. And I just was like, whatever. It's passionate, fell into that trap. Like, oh, the fight and makeup and, but it was getting really, really, really exhausting. And he was so nice, but, it was just very like platonic and like, oh, I needed to be taken care of, and I felt taken care of in that moment. And I was like, well, I gotta go now because I told him I was gonna be there at midnight for him to open the door. And he's like, do you want me to walk you back? And I was like, no, because I know this is gonna be a fight. I gotta get my head on straight. And he's like, all right, well, you know where we're gonna be if you have any problems. He's like, unfortunately, we're gonna be here all night, which makes sense now because I know now that he doesn't like to go out ever. Oh, I spoiled the story. So anyway, the girl gave me her phone number. She said I could stay with her if I had any problems. I never called her. I did get in a fight. We moved on, like he bought me a hat the next day. Like this was his way of apologizing for things like that. Oh, I locked you out in the middle of the night in another country. You want a hat? So, and then we ended up, we did the rest of our trip, and it was about a month later, I was back in LA, and I was having a meeting with a friend of mine, Adam Nitsky-Wolf, actually, the writer and director of Stranger Inside, which was a cool thriller I did with like Billy Baldwin and Stella Warren a few years ago in Spain, which was so fun. Anyway, me and Adam were talking about like, we could make a new movie and we could introduce these characters in a really interesting way. And I was like, ooh, how about this? You'll never guess what happened to me in London. This is a crazy story. And I started telling him the story. And you know how when you're telling someone a story, sometimes you're like, yeah, and then da-da-da, and you're looking behind them and you're kind of like remembering. I swear, I was sitting on the sidewalk outside this coffee shop I'd never been to, like outside my normal area that he wanted to go to. And this guy, I didn't remember his name, but this guy comes walking up to the same coffee shop And it's the guy that like gave me the pep talk at the club in London. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I like did a triple take and I was like, hold on, this is crazy. Hold on, I'll be right back. And I go up to him like, is it you? Like, you're the guy who saved me in London? And he's like, oh, Sarah, right? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, this is crazy. He's like, this is crazy. So, you know, he's like, we better have a coffee. Like, I'm very curious to see how everything worked out for you. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. Let's have a coffee. And we did. We had a coffee a couple days later. And it turns out that he had actually been engaged at that time. But it wasn't going so well. And, you know, he was thinking about breaking it off. And since then he had. And so we were basically, our first like 3 months of dates were like the saddest thing you've ever seen. Because we both just complained and said how hard life was. But it was important, you know, to commiserate and to like take time and not just rush into something. I think we both knew that. And it's amazing because we tell all of our friends now, don't microwave your relationship, like take it really slow, because that's what worked for us. And we have carried that through 7 years because finally we're getting married. So anyway, that's the story. You guys, it's true. Every word of it is true. There may be a movie someday because everybody thinks it should be a movie. Although I think everyone would say that's not possible. It's too perfect. Hollywood and their stories. But you never know. Next time I see you guys, I will be a married woman. And then like 3 weeks later, I'll be a mommy. So get ready. Get ready. There's a lot of really intense content coming at you hard and fast this week. Thank you for taking this little trip down memory lane with me, and I will see you again next week.